Okay, here's another strange happening. This is going to be a long video. Sorry about that. I don't know how to cut it shorter. This is in regards to astral travel. I seem to have been doing this at a very young age, like first, second grade, maybe even before then. But believe it or not, we lived in a haunted house when I was that age, very younger. I'll maybe talk about that at some point. But sitting up, laying on the bunk bed, my brother's up above, I'm below it. At that time, this is metal springs up above, and I'd be laying there as a very, very young kid, just seeing myself float up, out, past the bunk beds, out through the roof, and then I'd be out there. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to deal with that as a kid, or what you're supposed to do, or travel anywhere, or do anything. So I just went up there, and whatever happened, happened. And I was just trying to learn. It's like, at that point in my life, this is just normal. Everybody can do this. So I'm just up there trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? Hey, what's happening? Okay, that kind of thing. So nothing really big. Later, during puberty years, I'm in high school. What I use this was more as an escape, just to get away from the day-to-day crap that goes on, just as an escape. So what I would do, I would consciously do this, is lay down, relax, leave my body, and I could see it laying there going up and out. But I would go to Titan. It's one of the moons in the solar system. I believe it's around Saturn. I would go to Titan, and that's where I spent a lot of time, was on Titan. For me, when I was going there, it almost felt like you ever seen the movie Stargate and going through a wormhole? It's almost like going through a wormhole to get there. It was really weird. But I would go through that, and then I would be at Titan, and it's got where I would go through, it's a big ice sheet. I would go under the ice. It's really, really thick. And I'd go through the ice. Underneath it, there's intelligent life, organisms, life under there. They survive, but it's like a hydrothermal vent or something coming up from the ground. It's a liquid everywhere. They live in liquid. It's all liquid, some sort of liquid. But this hydrothermal vent, I don't know what I can call it, but little mini volcano pushing out nutrients, and that's what kept everybody going and alive. Now, later on, and many years later, somehow they got poisoned, and a lot of them got killed off. I think they're coming back now, but then they got killed. A lot of them got killed off. But I would go up there. I did this for years, and it made such an impression on me. I actually kept a journal. Started a journal, drew pictures, what I saw every time I went up there, and kept a journal. Later on, I mentioned in another video that it was my late teens that I started realizing, really coming to grips, that I'm the odd one out. Other people can't really do this. And it's still now, it's more easy to say that I'm crazy with all this than admit any of this is real. It's crazy. So it was much easier to admit that I'm crazy than any of this is real. This is just fantasy. This is science fiction. This is escapism. I want to do that. And I've done that all my life, trying to convince myself this is all escapism and fantasy. It's kind of hard sometimes to tell you that when things actually do occur. For example, on Titan, Earth, we sent up a probe going that way. I believe it was one of the pioneers, and it was going toward Titan, Saturn, and that was my own personal space at the time, way back when. So I went out of body. I went up to the spacecraft and started turning off some sensors. Innocuous, nothing's going to happen, right? It's your own insanity. You're strange. It's fantasy, escapism. But then coming back, hearing on the television that probe had some power failures and the sensors went down at the same time that I was up there screwing around with it. I'm like, well, that's a coincidence. I've mentioned coincidences in the past. Okay, must be a giant coincidence, right? Because we don't want this to be real. We'd much rather this kind of thing be fantasy or science fiction. So we don't want it to be real. Fine. So once it got past Titan a little bit, I went back up and I turned the sensors back on. Once it got out of range, and I turned the sensors back on. And then watching on the news again, that the sensors came back on. Once it got out of the range, about the time that I went up there and turned them back on, they came back on. I'm like, two in coincidences in one? Great. This is just another thing to make you insane, because you want to believe that you're crazy. You want to believe that none of this is real. But when physical changes actually happen, when you go do these things, and a physical change occurs and it gets reported in the news or in black and white, that sort of thing, it makes it a little more difficult to convince yourself that this is just fantasy, it's just a joke. So as far as I'm concerned, all that was real for me because of those changes. I did burn the book later because I didn't want anybody to find it. Knowing just how insane I was, I'd be put up and experimented on, thrown in a mental institution, something like that, fry my brain kind of thing. So I burned it. I didn't want anybody to see it. After a while, I quit going back there after a bunch of them died. I mean, it was the rest of them seemed to go in sort of a stasis, hibernation, and they seemed to come out of it and start rebuilding after that. But that's a weirdness that occurred up there, so I stopped going that away. There's many other times I would go astral. The last time I really went astral big was in Canada. I was up there for my professional career. I was up there on a job, and actually just fell out of the hotel bed, just fell out. And I'm like, well, I'm out. Might as well just go up and see the stars, that sort of thing. And so that's all I did. Tour around town. I didn't do anything big. Well, actually, I did do something big. I did something really big. I guess I'll mention it here. What I did at that one, at this point, it was much later in my life, and I was going astral. I had been reading up on it by this point, later in life. And some of the books, the crazy sci-fi type books, psychic type books on astral travel, talked about you can go forward, backward in time, you can do all this kind of stuff. And I thought, well, that's all nice and well, but let me try something else, something different. So I went up and out during that Canada, when I found out, I went up and out, and I decided to ask the universe a question, just the higher power, or whatever you want to call it God, higher power, the overlords of the simulation, I don't care, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same to me. So the higher power asked a question and said, I want to know the truth of everything. I want to know the truth. What's the truth of everything? And I was thinking some big knowledge, the universe, life, and everything. It's not 42, but something like that. And instead, what I got was everything about me. It told me the truth about myself, everything about me personally. Every little detail in my life came out. And basically, what that universal presence told me is, I'm okay just the way I am. I am the way I am supposed to be. This is meant to happen. I'm supposed to be like this and doing these things. So it's like, okay. And also that's when I was kind of informed that I have one commandment, just one. It overlays all the other 10 commandments in the background. I have one, and that's be kind to others. And from then on, that is my commandment. That's what I kind of follow, is be kind to others. I try to help people, but I try to be kind to others. Now, with some of my background and my heritage, I can get angry. I'm a guy, I get angry at stupidity mainly, and ignorance and incompetence. I get really angry. People on cell phones on the road in front of me, not paying attention, things like that. I get angry at stuff like that. But I try to be kind to others as much as I can, because of that overriding thing. There were several other things that go into the religious aspect of it. I might talk about later, but not here. So it went off in that direction a bit, but I won't get into it here because this video is already pretty long at 8 and almost 9 minutes. So that was really the last time that I went off in that direction. Something else had started occurring also back in college where I could see through walls, and I will talk about that. So instead of astral travel, what I can do now, and happens all the time, is seeing a flat surface and seeing through it to other places. And I'll get into that. So no longer a need to astral travel when I can just look at any flat surface and see through it and see what I'm looking for. So I'll get into that later.